Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation. I'm super excited to welcome Monika Muranyi today. So let me welcome Monika. Let me introduce you very briefly and then you'll add some more details. So let's see if I can remember this. So Monika, you are an Australian author. You have traveled to over 30 countries. You have been a park ranger, right? In 2 countries?
Yes.
New Zealand and
Yes.
Australia? Okay. You have done some sacred ceremonies with Aboriginal shamans, right? And then, so let me pass it on to you and let you kind of fill in more details. I know you've done work with Kryon more recently, so I'll let you explain that.
Well, thank you, Natalie. It's an absolute honor to be here. I also want to welcome our listeners who are joining in. This is something, honestly, I would not have been tuned into before my spiritual awakening. So a little bit of my story. As you said, I was a park ranger for over 15 years, and I was really happy. My passion and love was being outdoors and away from people. We would deal with them in our guided activities, but really my heaven was communing in nature, being away from people. And I honestly believed that people were the root of all evil and we were destroying the planet. Now, some of my ranger colleagues still think that now. So really, when I had a spiritual awakening, this was a 180-degree shift where I started to learn and realize that the planet, our living, breathing planet Earth that I loved so much, has a consciousness, and it is here to support humans. It's here as our journey to discover divinity. So imagine my surprise when I discover that there is more to the earth and us than meets the eye. So that led me on a journey to discover what that was. And that's where I really resonated with the messages of an entity. I don't even like using that word, but a gentleman called Lee Carroll who channels Kryon. He's been doing it since 1989. And the messages are profound. They are empowering for the human, and they really describe in detail a lot of science, a lot of physics, the connection with Earth in a way that we can understand and connect with. So to me, that was important, because just because you become spiritual, you still have logical intelligence. And I think it's healthy to constantly check back in. Is this correct or is it not? I think we always will have that on our path.
Right. So let me take you back to kind of the beginning, because, the spiritual awakening, for some people, it's sort of the big bang that happens overnight. But I don't think that a lot of people experience it like that. For most people, it's sort of incremental little changes that start happening, unexpected things that happen, or maybe things that are seemingly so insignificant that we don't even notice how they accumulate and then sort of qualitatively transform our life. So how was your experience of awakening? How did you experience it?
I did have quite a big moment, actually.
Okay.
So for me, it was the end of a marriage that I had.
Okay.
And with it, my whole world crumbled, and I was in a very bad state. So I actually had a friend at work who kept gently telling me to go and see his wife, Linda, because Linda was a Reiki healer and a spiritual healer. So he would gently tell me to go and see her. And every time he did, I would be screaming out in my mind, I'm not going to go and see this lady. Come on, are you kidding me? But somehow, over the course of many cups of coffee in the cafes with me crying, he would gently tell me to go and see Linda. So I remember one time thinking, okay, I'm going to go see her just so we can finish this conversation, right? And I mean, after all, what was going to happen? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So this really was an invitation. And obviously, Spirit knows us. Everyone has their own story, and Spirit really knows our personality, our psyche, what we need to make us pay attention. So for me, it was simply trying to tell someone, okay, enough, I'm going to do it just so I can prove you wrong, because that's my personality.
Right.
So I went along, and that meeting changed everything for me. And I can't even remember all the details. We were just really connecting. She did some sessions on her table. I have no idea what they were, but somewhere in there I had a vision. And the vision was these Maoris in a canoe paddling on the ocean with snow-capped mountains in the background, and they were chanting and calling to me. Up until then, I'd never really experienced this type of feeling or visions. So I knew then I had to go to New Zealand. So that was my next stage and my next journey for me. I traveled, I got a job in the national parks in New Zealand. I traveled over there, and literally within my first yoga class that I was doing in town, someone handed me a Kryon book.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole journey, here's the thing, for anyone who's listening, they can testify to this. When you begin a spiritual quest, things happen.
Right.
As soon as you give intent or have open curiosity with a completely open mind, things happen. People are going to come into your life. Books are going to fall off the bookcase, as I know for some people. And, literally for some people, it takes a book falling off a shelf and hitting them on the head. So whatever your story is, it can sometimes be a little frightening and taking you out of your comfort zone. And we have free choice in this. We will only ever be given as much as we can handle through free choice. When I was in New Zealand, obviously that first Kryon book that I read had some information from a lady called Peggy Phoenix Dubrow, who does energy work. My cells started tingling when I was reading about her electromagnetic field balancing technique. So I found a practitioner and 3 other people to come to my place so we could do the training. And it wasn't quite what I expected, because everyone else was feeling energy and I didn't feel a thing. Mm-hmm. And I was a real moment of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. That my logic brain was saying how stupid all of this was, and how stupid that people can be sliding their hand through the air and say they feel energy when I felt nothing. So I nearly quit. I didn't want to do it. I actually got really sick, and I nearly didn't even make it through to the end of the training. Mm-hmm. So when we finished the training, and congratulations, there was an internship period, and I was like, well, I'm done. I'm not doing it.
Right.
I mean, who's going to do this stupid stuff, right? However, again, a friend of mine was saying, you should do this. I will do it with you. We can support each other. So again, it was very gentle, but very supportive. And I just thought, what the hell? All right, I'm going to do it just so you can get off my case about it and finish it and move on with my life. So this is, you can see, this is a bit of a pattern where I have resistance, a huge resistance, and then I surrender and things move forward.
And, I want to comment something, on the fact that you said that you didn't feel anything. And interestingly enough, Lee Carroll actually says that he calls himself dense because he is not sensitive to, to the energies the way other people are, that can feel everything around it. And he says that it's really on purpose. He has to be sort of protected as he travels all over the world. And I can relate to that. I consider myself dense. You know, I don't necessarily feel all these things all the time. There have been, though, moments in my life when I definitely could feel a difference. And so I just want to tell anybody who's listening that, you know, as you're going through this, entering this new consciousness, and you're going awakening, it doesn't mean that you necessarily just all of a sudden become full-blown psychic and you feel everything, sense everything. And it's really very different for different people, so it can manifest in different ways. And I also want, before we, you know, get back to your story, I want to make sure we spell the word Kryon right, so that those that don't know can find the information. Kryon is Kryon. And I would say it's sort of a collective consciousness, I guess, that's
Yes.
kind of overseeing the magnetic pulls around the earth. Is that, would you describe it that way?
Well, in actual fact, yes. In 1989, when Kryon came in to Lee Carroll, and that, by the way, is a fascinating story.
Yes,
I mean, Lee was an award-winning engineer, audio engineer, didn't believe in any of this stuff.
Right.
And two psychics 3 years apart gave him the same identical message, that there's a magnetic master named Kryon trying to get a hold of you. So this tweaked his puzzle. There was a puzzle he couldn't solve, and pretty much the Kryon story begins from there. But very interesting, no one had heard about Kryon until Lee Carroll started to channel the information through, and he calls him, Kryon says, I'm the magnetic master. So Kryon came, the entourage came and told that we are here to help shift and realign the magnetic grid of the planet. And that from 1989 to 2002 was the time frame they said that they were realigning the magnetic grid. This is actually provable in science. If you take a look at the compass headings on the runways of airports, which line up with magnetic grid, they have shifted more in that 10-year period than they had in the last 100 years. Now, you might ask, what does magnetics have to do with any of this? The way that Kryon describes it is that the magnetics is the grid of communication. And essentially, humanity had decided that we were going to shift from a consciousness of war and fear and hatred to one that was intent on having solutions for peace. So there was the collective consciousness that made that decision. And as a result, the magnetic grid had to shift to allow the new energy and new information to come through onto the planet, which is the reason why so many are now starting to awaken, because there has never been a time on the planet than right now to support the spiritual awakening of all of the old souls that are here on the planet. The wind is at your back, is what Kryon says.
Yeah. And so, you know, of course, there are more and more people awakening these days. And there is a new energy Kryon talks about. And that's really why I called the series of conversations New Consciousness Activation, because Kryon talks about us being as new humans. We are transitioning from this old energy into the new energy, into becoming new human. And so people that are listening might have questions. For example, so as we are becoming new humans, does it mean we become perfect? Does it mean life becomes, you know, smooth sailing, everything is easy, no challenges? Does it mean that the people, you know, the speakers, even within the series, does it mean that they just got things figured out? So what about your life? You know, as you continue, as you have gone through that process, has it gotten to that perfect state yet?
I think perfection is perhaps the incorrect word to use, because it's trying to, I mean, what is perfect? Everyone has a different interpretation, and yet spirit also always tells us we are magnificent and perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think rather than focusing on, well, perfection and what does it mean to be a new human, it really, for me, my life has completely transformed, and it's one where once you start doing the inner work and you can create peace internally, regardless of the chaos and drama that is happening, that is actually what I call spiritual gold. And when you are in a place of peace and centeredness, this is the seat of power that helps us in our decision making. When you become aware of your intuition and what intuitive information you are receiving on, it is always benevolent. Always. So if you can think of the whole field that surrounds us of cosmic intelligence, or however you want to describe it, it's always benevolent, and it's always streaming benevolent and broadcasting benevolence to us. So basically, this is a really wonderful way to navigate your world and your reality. You keep creating new experiences. And when you get in touch with your intuition and your guided information, you'll start realizing in a very practical way that it can help you navigate situations. Even I constantly travel on the road with Lee Carroll. Planes will be delayed. Mm-hmm. Things will happen. And this is where you take a moment, take a breath, and go with what your intuition says. And in several cases, it's allowed us to rent a car, drive the distance to make sure we make the meeting instead of booking another plane. So these are very practical ways of navigating your world in a way that creates a much better world for yourself, a much better reality. So it's helping you in huge decision making. Are you in right relationship with your job? Are you in right relationship with your home? Are you in right relationship with the people around you? When you start tapping in to a benevolent source, then all of those things are much, much easier to steer and navigate. And that really represents the new human who is able to do it with love and compassion and return themselves to balance. It's not to say that I don't have my moments where I have a tantrum and things don't go well, but you allow yourself to have that and then come back into balance.
Right, and I think that the new human is, and as Kryon also talks about it, the new human is someone who can get back into balance faster. So it's not that we are in perfect, Zen peace all the time necessarily. We get unbalanced, but we can sort of come back to it a little bit faster than before. But another thing that I was kind of I think going for is to ask, does it mean that as we are evolving, that the problems in our life will go away? And not how we react to them, but that the challenges will go away, that the challenges will just disappear? Or do you still face challenges in life?
I think there's many parts and answers to that question. Some of it has to do with our past lives that we have had and the life lessons that we need to learn. So even trying to identify what your life lesson is can be an enormous task. The example I gave of my marriage breaking up really over several years led me to realize part of my life lesson is to deal with abandonment. Mm-hmm. So once you can reconciliate that life lesson and work through it, then that challenge won't necessarily appear in that way again. You've done it, you've overcome it. So these are the types of things where you can actually negate. There's another thing Kryon tells us, which is you can drop your karma. So you don't have to keep doing the same things or being with the same people anymore once you have dropped your karma to be in that situation. So I do believe there are certain things that we can overcome and don't have to be challenged with again. The second thing that I'd like to mention is that I'm totally enamored in the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, he is really, in a very beautiful scientific way, able to show that we can condition the neuron synapse in our brain to be wired to a certain way of thinking. So if you're always negative and complaining, your brain becomes hardwired to a position of being negative and complaining. However, the good news is Dr. Joe has shown methods where you can undo that hardwiring and create new synapse connections in your brain to be one of gratitude. Now, having an attitude of being grateful and positive affirmations, it can only go so far if you haven't rearranged the wiring and changed things in your subconscious.
Right.
So this is really powerful stuff. Essentially, Dr. Joe teaches that you can create your own reality based on your continual efforts of intention, focused thoughts, and to have your conscious world eventually replace any of those subconscious programmings. And he's written amazing materials, and he has many examples of people that have come to his workshops and totally rewritten the hardwiring in their brain to create a complete new reality. And that's really what this whole awakening process is about, and what attracted me to Peggy Phoenix Dubro's work is she kept emphasizing to co-create your most enlightened life. So challenges may still come, but when you are focusing on the creation part of it,
right,
you will find that the challenges that may have happened to your old self do not occur to who you have become now. And when we can actually see things happening for those people around us, but until they're willing and prepared to look at their own self-responsibility in creating that, there's not a lot that's going to shift.
Right, and the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's also talking about the creating that electromagnetic field that brings reality into being, and he talks about our intention that we hold within, or like the affirmation being the electrical part, and the emotions, the positive emotions, those heightened emotions are the magnetic part. And so when you combine those together, that's what really begins to shift and create that new reality that we want to have. And so in a way, I think he talks about the fact that what we then begin to perceive is that there is subjective reality everywhere. So somebody else may be in the same neighborhood and experience a totally different reality from what we are experiencing, because we choose what we create.
Exactly. And really, I mean, part of it is just joy. That word. Joy, joy, joy. I was reading about a guy, probably not even spiritual, don't know, who knows, but he was unemployed and completely depressed and miserable life. But this guy, he started to go to Disneyland, and he went to Disneyland for 2,000 days in a row. I mean, can you believe it? But it made him feel happy. So after doing this, he got out of his depression and got himself a job. And even now he still goes to Disneyland, even if it's just an hour, because it makes him feel good. So I really, really want to encourage whoever is listening, doesn't matter if you're spiritual or not, find something that gives you complete joy and happiness and do it. That's what you should be doing.
Yes, great, thank you. So let's get back to Kryon for a little bit. So you compiled, or you wrote 3 books based on the channeled information, right? It's the human Akash. The human Akash, the Gaia effect, and the human soul revealed, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us what maybe what discoveries you made as you went through that material? What attracted you to those particular topics?
Well, I was a park ranger, as you know, and when I started learning the energy work of Peggy, I really wanted to transition out of my ranger job and move into my spiritual calling. So I just wanted a new experience. So I know this is going to sound crazy, but I quit my job. I moved to some friends of mine that were living in Santiago, Chile, and started work at my friend's school. She was working there to teach English to the students. I wanted to be in a place where I knew Kryon was talking about the Kundalini energy of the earth was moving to South America. I wanted to sit and feel what that was going to be like, and I wanted to have a new chapter in my life. So after about a month of teaching, which I hated and I was really, really bad at it, I quit. So there I am in Chile. Oh my God, I've given up everything to come here. But I realized I was with friends, and financially I wasn't too concerned. I didn't have to run out and get another job. So it just allowed some space in my life, which was always crammed, filled with busyness. So I started taking a few Spanish classes, but then I had this intuition tell me, okay, no more Spanish classes. That's it, don't enroll. And I was like, what? I've got to be something. I can't just sit around doing nothing. Don't enroll. So, okay, I didn't enroll. And then you have to know that those last 2 years before I moved to Chile, I was trying to find information on how the energy of the planet worked, because I'd studied the energy anatomy of the human through Peggy's work. But my passion was always Gaia and the earth. So how did that work? What was the energy system of the planet, and how did it work with us? And I kept looking for any book I could get my hands onto talking about the energy grids, and nothing was anything at all like what Kryon was telling us. So for 2 years after that search, and I had even a few people tell me, well, you need to write a book about this. And I thought, I'm not going to write a book about this. But it was clear as day when I woke up in my bed in Chile, knowing that, Monika, you are going to write the book on the Gaia energy grids. And I just went, okay, I'm going to write the book on the Gaia energy grids. And I realized, well, really the only source of information that I resonate with that explains it in detail is the channeled information from Kryon. But I was a little hesitant because this is not my information. It belongs to Lee Carroll, who channels it. So when I approached Lee about doing this body of work, he was incredibly supportive and said, well, that's something I am never going to have the time to do. At the time, he was working on the recalibration of humanity, and that included recalibration of Gaia. So he really had the vision that these 2 books would work together and put a piece of the Gaia information that wasn't able to go into his book. And then he said, well, you know what, Monika, you should also ask some questions to Kryon about the topics you're working on. So, I mean, that was the clincher for me, because I always had many, many questions. So my love and passion is about organizing and compiling information. So, you know, as a kid, I'd get my M&Ms, I'd open the packet, I'd start sorting them out into colors. Okay? So, yeah, this is a little crazy, but it's how my brain works. So I started looking at 26 years of channeling on Gaia. And I started compiling, well, what are those channels where Kryon talks about Gaia, and grouping them into subjects like the crystalline grid. What does Kryon say about that? The animals of the planet. What does Kryon say about that? The magnetic grid. So I started to piece together all of the aspects of how the Earth's consciousness grids interfaces with humans. So that was really my mission. And I only ever thought I was going to do that one book. But halfway through, it became obvious that there was another subject which had a lot of deep information on the human Akash. So the Akash represents our past lives and future lives to come. So let's not forget future lives to come. So it's an energy. And in 2008 was the first time Kryon really started talking about mining the Akash. So the purpose of the Akash is like a gold mine, to go in there and pull out the shamanic wisdom that you have within your Akashic records. So obviously it just led from one book to another with the Akash, and because all that information in the Kryon work was scattered throughout years and years of channeling. So, but to me, I loved being able to, you know, my little M&Ms, get the little colors, put them into groups. So I was able to pull all together the information and ask questions to give a more complete picture on that one topic. And then obviously when I presented my information to a publisher in Canada, they said, great, we want to sign you up for a trilogy. And I thought, great. I don't know what the third book is, but Spirit had a plan.
Right.
And, obviously, when I was following the channelings of Lee, we had some beautiful information come through about the 9 attributes of the human soul, and that allowed me to complete the trilogy.
Wonderful. So before, I would really love to talk to you about the Gaia, the Earth Kundalini. But I want to just get back for a second to mining the Akash and maybe explain it a little bit more to the listeners. And the idea of that, and then you correct me if I'm wrong, the idea is that, of course, as a soul, we have had multiple experiences. And so in spirit, there is no time. So there are all kind of experiences that we have right now. And so when we need to tap into a strength that is possibly not present at the moment in our life, that we can reach into that record and really pull on that strength that's there. It's just we are not accessing it consciously, perhaps.
Yeah.
Does that explain it? Or
it explains it beautifully, and it's the $1 million question everyone wants to ask. Okay, mining my Akash, how do I do it? Tell me.
exactly.
Tell me, how?
Yes.
How
Tell
do
us.
I do it? And you will actually discover that there is no definitive Kryon channel to tell you how you should mine your Akash. And the reason is because we are all so completely individual that we cannot possibly have one big laundry list of things that will apply to every situation. So it's really a journey of your own self-discovery, and there are many, many tools out there to help people mine their Akash. This is where you really need to tune into your own intuitive powers and ask for synchronicity to bring you to the method that you are going to need. One of the things Lee talks about from his own experience is to just practice. When he first started channeling Kryon, it was all done by automatic writing. And then Kryon said, you need to do this in front of a group. And he was like, no way, not going to happen. So Kryon said, you need to pull out the Greek orator that you were. And he was like, what? How do I do that? And Kryon said, practice it as though you own it, and then you will become it. So that's exactly what he did. First with small groups. He said he had to change shirt twice because he sweated so much in front of this group of 10 people that he knew. Right. But it was just practice, practice, practice. So that definitely is one way where we can access things within our Akash, is to practice it and own it exactly like you do with any new skill that you are learning, and then it becomes reinforced. There's also guided meditations that people have created. There is another lady in Australia that I have come to admire her work. She's someone that does emotional freedom technique tapping. Now, with her work in that and the spiritual information from Kryon, she's actually pioneered a whole new technique called quantum EFT and mining the Akash. So she's using the tapping, when you tap on points and take people through almost like a regression into when a certain thing that is bothering them first began, which was in past lives, and to basically release that trauma, and then to activate and bring forward the attributes that they want to have in this life. So she has had a tremendous amount of success in having people go through and mine their Akash with these tapping technique. And past life regression, that sometimes that will allow you to clear things within your Akash. I've also had the pleasure of working with Lee Carroll, and we've created an app on the smartphone. It's called Akashic Power, and there are 9 channelings in there from Kryon, which allows you to go in and mine your Akash in certain areas like health, relationships, and in those channels, Kryon tells you to say the following words along in the channel, and there's a ability for you to say those words, which is talking to your innate body consciousness. Dear innate, bring forward my perfect health. So if you can do this on a daily basis, it's going to impact and an imprint within you.
And it sounds like you're combining also the intention, of course, and then the affirmation, in that last, when you were talking about the app, that's kind of what it's bringing together. And I would love to talk to you about affirmations, but first, let's jump back to Gaia Kundalini. So in the work that I do with my clients, I have recently also come to the point where I understand that the transformation that we're going through cannot just be done within ourselves, that it has to be in partnership with Gaia and in alignment. And as you begin to align yourself within yourself and, to the Gaia outside, then the transformation becomes more powerful. So can you tell us about the work that you do with, or what you've discovered about Gaia Kundalini?
I really love this subject, and there is, if you look at the indigenous, they really recognized the energy of the planet. They held the dirt in their hands and they knew that this was life. Mm-hmm. They didn't do prayers of asking. They did ceremonies of alignment.
Right.
When they knew that they had their crops and their rain and their harvest, they knew they were in complete alignment with the planet. So this is an element that our ancestors have always known, the wisdom of our ancient ones. In fact, in your past lives, you have been your own wise ancient ancestor. So working with the energies of the planet, it really connects you and grounds you in a way that you are to be here now. Spiritual awakening is not about floating and flying up there into the cosmos. Spiritual awakening is being here on planet Earth and connecting to the cosmos and bringing that through you onto the planet and sharing it with others. So your own Kundalini is in you. The Kundalini of the Earth is slightly different, but Kryon described that the shift in the Kundalini, which was residing in the Northern Hemisphere in India, Tibet Wisdom Center, has shifted and moved down to the Wisdom Center within the Peru, Bolivia, Lake Titicaca and surrounding area. And what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at the Northern Hemisphere, which ancient prophecy have talked about being the male hemisphere. The Southern Hemisphere is talked about being as the feminine energy. So there's many prophecies. I invite you to go and have a look at what they say about the eagle and the condor, the awakening of the puma, the journey of the feathered serpent. They are all talking about this point exactly where we are right now, where we are starting to balance the masculine and the feminine. And we now have more of the mother energy, and mother energy represents compassion. And isn't it interesting? We always talk about our earth as mother, right? Mother Earth. We recognize the feminine within this life force, this life giver. If you align yourself with the planet, it's going to extend your life. You have a partner. Something else that, if you're listening and you live in a city and you think, well, how am I going to connect with Gaia? I'm in an apartment and everywhere around me is concrete. Well, what about the air that you breathe? That has been provided from Gaia. Gaia takes in our carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen. There is a symbiotic relationship that when you become more aware of it and have gratitude and appreciation, it can be done in such a simple way, such as looking at a beautiful painting of Gaia and appreciating it, having a bunch of flowers in a vase on your table, having pot plants around you. It doesn't really matter how you do it because it is felt by Gaia. And when you send your appreciation, it becomes amplified and it gets pushed back straight to you. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful infinity. I'm sure you've seen transformations in your clients when they can have this beautiful flow, infinity loop.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to kind of extend that about the divine balance. So as we think about the potential of the future, and as we're continuing on our path, and the planet gets into a more balanced state of masculine and feminine energy, how do you think that's going to express itself? What would that mean to us in our daily lives? What would that look like when we've come from thousands of years of being pretty unbalanced, and so I don't think that many people even realize what it would look like when the two divine energies become balanced.
Well, you can always feel and sense a balanced person in the room. It's the person that everybody wants to go and hang out with. They feel great being next to them. They can laugh. They can open up. They can feel safe. They don't feel judged. They don't feel that they're being tolerated. So when you think of the masters that walked on the planet, what was it that made people want to follow them and be with them? It was the fact that they had a balanced masculine feminine within them, and it radiated out that peace. So how can you do that in your daily life? Well, if someone cuts you off in the vehicle and you're in the car, what is your reaction? What is your attitude to that? what would a balanced person do? Perhaps the balanced person would just back off the accelerator and think to themselves, I'm sorry that person's having a bad day, and send them energy. What about the person that's waiting on you at the restaurant? They are serving you, and a balanced person acknowledges that and appreciates them deeply for what they are doing, not what position they are holding. What about someone that comes up and starts yelling at you? How can you respond to that in a balanced way? So these are where we will start to see the differences. Take a look in politics. Who is it that we start to value? It's the ones that are balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look in business. The businesses that we want to work with are people that have integrity, compassion, all signs of a human being that is balanced.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. So let's talk about affirmations. So you created a deck of cards, right? Affirmation cards. And so I view affirmations sort of as a new way of praying, instead of asking for things, which sort of the underlying thought behind that is that if I'm asking for something, it means I don't have it. So I have lack. Affirmations are now allowing us to state what we want to see in our life. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily, so if you're sick and you're saying I'm well and I'm healthy, it doesn't mean that you're lying to yourself. You're not stating what necessarily is happening at the moment, but you're stating your intention for what you want to see in your life. So tell us about how you came to this work and kind of how it developed.
Very early on in my spiritual awakening, I came across the work of Florence Scovel-Shinn, and she had written, I think in the 1920s, she had written some beautiful affirmations. And what is an affirmation? An affirmation is a statement that you affirm to be true. Mm-hmm. It's not wishful thinking. For example, I give thanks for my blue eyes. That's a statement of affirming of something that is true. So when we take that, and you absolutely feel it 100% when you say it, that it's true. So to affirm the sick person that they are healthy, and I'm just lying to yourself, that's not the point of the affirmation. The point of the affirmation is to affirm something, a statement that you know to be true. And what it does is it creates an energy that will pull that affirmation towards you, because your body intelligence is listening to everything that you say. Every word that comes out of your mouth is a vibration in the air, is a frequency, and the cells of your body are listening. So when you say positive, powerful affirmations that have an emotional connection, you're creating an alignment with something you may think is in the future, but in that moment that you are saying it, you are affirming the alignment with it. And I've used affirmations in this way, and what you are affirming, it comes true. And that can be really, when I first discovered Florence's affirmations, I will admit I was using it for things like I was trying to sell my motorbike when I was leaving New Zealand. So I used an affirmation. I said, I give thanks for the perfect sale at the perfect price, giving perfect satisfaction to all. I was told by so many people, oh, that motorbike is never going to sell. No one's going to want it for the price you want, etc., etc. And this happens, right? You have all this negative stuff coming in. You can't do this. Who do you think you are? No, that's not going to happen. So you really have to just, okay, universe, cancel. I'm now saying what I affirm to be my truth. Mm-hmm. And when you can start affirming something that is your truth, watch for things and synchronicity that is going to happen. Now, the timing of it is the timing of it. You realize when you affirm things for your health, there's often a 90-day cycle that you have to wait for your biology to catch up. But absolutely, you can start using affirmations to affirm. I recently had some work done on my tooth, and I was in a lot of pain, and the dentist was saying, well, if it doesn't get better, you're going to need root canal therapy. And I said, that is not going to happen. So I would make positive affirmations and gently hold the area of my tooth, tell how much I loved that part of my body, how beautiful it was, and I give thanks for a beautiful, healthy tooth. And so that's affirming that what you perceive as your outcome.
So how do you work with affirmations? Is it something that you kind of say whenever the right moment happens? Do you do, a certain set of times a day? Like, give the listeners an idea of how you work.
Okay. Yeah, it's really individual, and anything that you can do that becomes a habit for you, that's what you should go with. So I actually designed the affirmations to be on the smartphone app to begin with. That came before the card deck, actually.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
So I have 105 affirmations on a smartphone app that has been audio recorded with Lee, Carol, and I, that allows people to listen to affirmations. They can set it on a timer, so it can just run through the affirmations for 15 minutes and then shut down, or 30 minutes, whatever you set the timer for. And we know that first thing in the morning on waking from bed and last thing in the evening before going to sleep are the perfect times to be using these affirmations, to have it go into the subconscious. So and the other thing is, who out there is waking up at 3 a.m.? I think there's a lot of us that sometimes we're on this spiritual journey, and hello, we are woken up at 3 a.m. So what do? I listen to affirmations, and it just puts me, you try and stay awake, and then you're falling asleep again.
Right.
So the other way that I was using affirmations is when I go walking and no one's around me, I will say, thank you, Gaia, for being here. Thank you, Gaia, for loving us. Thank you, Gaia, for loving me. And I often like to repeat them 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
It really lets it sink in. I know other people that will just do affirmation where they will just select one randomly. In fact, let's do one now.
Absolutely, that would be great.
I have a card deck here, and let's ask for an affirmation for the viewers, for everyone listening, what that might be. So here is the card that I pulled. I'm going to read it out, but I'm just going to show it. It's the peaceful soul. So we've been talking about the new human, the new energy, and the balanced person. So here is the affirmation. I feel peaceful in my existence and take delight in the soul deep calmness that surrounds me. I am calm, relaxed, and blissfully peaceful. So again, the power of affirmations, it's great to use someone else's, but if we can create ones for ourselves, that is where the secret and power lies within it. So I've created in my card deck some blank cards, because the idea is that you write what it is. What are your issues? I don't know what they are. You know yourself so intimately compared to anybody else. Is it to be in right relationship? Is it to be in better health for your body? And if you can use powerful words that are in your vocabulary, that have a deep emotional connection. So that's very, very important. You have to be able to emotionally feel the affirmation in a language that communicates to you.
Mhm.
For me, I would say, I give thanks for the avalanche of abundance that flows to me with grace and ease. So those are my power words, because I can picture, I'm visual, although I can picture an avalanche of abundance coming down onto me. But for someone else, those words are not their vocabulary. So if you can choose your own words, have a look at all the affirmations that are out there, because there's a lot, and that will inspire you to create your own. And all of those, when you say those affirmations, it should feel good, because you're giving thanks. You're giving thanks for your peaceful existence. What would that mean? How would your life change if you can walk around and carry with you that deep, calm, peaceful existence within you in every situation?
Absolutely, and the positive. Joe Dispenza works with those positive emotions, and some of the positive emotions that he helps people cultivate is the feeling of appreciation and gratitude. Those are kind of one of the two main ones. And one of the things that that we can do is put a hand to the heart and just touch it, so that it brings your body's focus to it. And then see if you can cultivate, bring up that feeling of gratitude, that emotion of gratitude or appreciation as we say the affirmations. And that really makes it so much more powerful.
Absolutely.
And that's a beautifully designed card deck. And in a minute, I'm going to let you tell the listeners where they can find it, because I think it's really gorgeous. But before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you, so as we move into the new energy and we take, little steps towards activating new consciousness, becoming the newly evolved human, I think there is so much potential for just miracles to happen in the future. And I think I would love the listeners, as they go through the series of interviews, to gain that sense of excitement about the potential of what's possible for us as new humans. So are there things that you're excited about as we move forward, about our potential in the future of what we could become?
Absolutely. I think we are in very, very exciting times. Don't look at the news.
Yes.
Do not look at the media. If you can, yes, those things are happening, but it's really a battle between dark and light that is happening on the planet. So light is winning. And when you start looking at the things that are happening on the planet, it should give you chicken skin and goosebumps as to where we are going and what is happening. When you start seeing the good news stories that are starting to happen as we are evolving in our human nature. Our human nature was survival at all costs. So the new human nature is the survival of us depends on everybody else being in it together. We're one. We're not separate. So it's one of inclusion, of compassion, of love, of integrity, of joy, of gratitude, of appreciation. There's so many things on the YouTube that you can have evidence of this being practiced. One of my favorite is a little boy called Danny, who is a water boy. And he has a speech impediment, and he has a peculiarity where he likes to wear a shirt and a suit and a tie. He was getting bullied. And when the 5th grade boys found out that this was happening, they did not confront the bullies. They did not imitate. They did not use any negative or violent tactics. They showed their love and support for this little boy, Danny, by coming to the school, every single one of them dressed in a tie and a suit jacket to
Okay.
show their love and bonding. This is the new human. This is the way of it going forward. And it's starting from the kids.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's a wonderful place to, uplifting place to end. And before we say our goodbyes, I would like to ask you, so what are you up to these days? And where can our listeners find your books and the cards and anything else that you'd like to offer them?
Sure. So Kryon.com is the website for Lee Carroll and the Kryon work, and there is a store located on the Kryon website, and all of my products are available from purchase through the Kryon.com online store. You can find out more about me on monikamuranyi.com, and if you go to leecarrollthekryon.com schedule page, you'll see there's a whole list of different events. I'm Lee Carroll's shadow, so basically all of the events that he's doing currently, I am there as part of the Kryon team. So we have a lot of incredible adventures coming up. Locally here in the United States, we're going to be doing a cruise to Alaska. We also have trips over to Europe, and later on in the year we will be going to, for the first time, to India, Nepal and Tibet, which will be a deeply transformative experience. And all of the information that comes through Lee and Kryon is available for free on his kryon.com/free audio. You can listen to any of those channels. There's also lots of information on my website in the form of articles and other things like that people may want to check out.
And your free gift to our listeners is an excerpt from your book,
Yes.
right? That they can read for free, a chapter.
Exactly. If they go to monikamuranyi.com/extras, all of my books had too much information for the publisher to publish. So they are offered on my website as standalone chapters, and they are, for example, the Gaia Effect book. I have an extra chapters on the weather, on sustainable energy, on the elementals, and there's many of these extra chapters complete with Kryon questions that are brand new and not published or seen anywhere else on the planet except in that area.
Well, that's very exciting. Monika, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today about all these things. I know we could continue on. There's so many more things to talk about, but I want to respect everybody's time. So thank you again for being part of this, and I hope we can do it again someday.
Well, thank you very much, and love and blessings to everyone. May peace prevail, and may you live in your joy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.